Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining where we're taking a look at snipers in this video. Beyond Light has given us even more to choose from for DPS, so we'll be taking a look at the following with some options from Season 11 included as well. So first up it will be Cloudstrike, obviously, then Succession with extended mag and also tactical mag, as well as major spec and backup mag mods. Adored, also with a major spec and a backup mag mod. Whisper of the Worm with its catalyst, Izanagi's Burden with its catalyst, and the Ikelos sniper. And finally, Long Shadow. All perks will be revealed when looking at each weapon in more detail, and after we've looked at the snipers on their own, the legendaries will be paired with Anarchy and Izanagi's Burden paired with Interference 6. The only assumption is that a sniper rifle loader mod was equipped, so everything else has been tested at base numbers, such as total reserves, etc. And there are also one or two anomalies I want to bring up. After taking a look at all the snipers individually, we'll look at them on the graph, and then on a second graph but when paired with other weapons, followed by a table to summarise all weapons and combinations with their damage, time and DPS. Damage and reload times for some weapons have changed slightly from last season, but there's nothing too major. So first up is Cloudstrike. This is an exotic sniper that sits in the energy slot, fires at 140 RPM and holds 7 in the magazine. The perk that makes this stand out for DPS is Stormbringer, which creates lightning strikes at the point of impact after landing rapid precision hits. So assuming you've landed those rapid precision hits on the third round and for everyone after that, there'll be a lightning strike. First, the numbers, and then a very important point to make about this weapon. So base damage per round against Karl comes in at 10,343, while each lightning strike does 2 lots of damage, 10,623 and 6,374. The strikes happen almost immediately after the round that precedes it, therefore from the third round onwards you can effectively do 27,340 damage for each one fired. Base ammo capacity is 24, so on the final magazine you can only fire 3 rounds and therefore create only 1 lightning strike. The time to empty all those rounds is roughly 15.35 seconds, with total damage being 520,184, therefore DPS is 33,888. Now currently, this is one of the most popular weapons when up against Taniks in the final encounter of the Deep Stone Crypt raid, but generally that's only when there's someone using Divinity. This, I believe, causes lightning strikes to do precision damage, increasing DPS further, and because Taniks is a large target, most, if not all of those strikes will make contact and do damage. When tested against Karl, however, some strikes would miss him completely. And let's not forget that the bubble created by Divinity is basically impossible to miss, even when firing at max fire rate, so the weapon's best possible DPS is very easy to achieve. Next up, Succession, a 72 RPM sniper acquired from the latest raid. This was tested with the perks Extended Mag, Reconstruction and Vorpal Weapon, with both a backup mag mod and a major spec mod. I also then did some testing with the same perks but with Tactical Mag in the place of Extended Mag. Now, Tactical Mag will take the magazine size from 3 to 4, as well as speeding up reload. But if you apply a backup mag mod to it, it won't actually go any higher and remains at 4. So this has only been tested with a major spec mod. Whereas with Extended Mag, which also takes the magazine size to 4, applying a backup mag mod then pushes it up to 5. For all DPS numbers, full ammo reserves are required and Reconstruction needs to have been given time to fully reload the weapon to be on normal capacity, before starting a damage phase. So, starting with Tactical Mag and a major spec mod. Each round is 21,844, remember that's with a Vorpal weapon as well. If you've given Reconstruction enough time to do its thing, then you'll have 8 rounds in the first magazine, after which you'll have 2 rounds of 4, followed by a final round with 2. Total time to fire all of them is 19.21 seconds and total damage is 393,197, therefore DPS is 20,468. Now it's Succession again with the same perks, only Tactical Mag has been replaced with Extended Mag, and we're testing it with a backup mag mod. Each round with Vorpal Weapon only does 20,269 damage this time, and for the first magazine you can have 10 due to Reconstruction. After that there'll be a magazine of 5, followed by a final magazine of 3. Total time to fire all of those is around 18.19 seconds, and total damage is 364,838, meaning DPS comes in at 20,057. And the final Succession combination is Extended Mag with a major spec mod. Now of course this will always have lower DPS than Tactical Mag with a major spec, as you'll be doing the same damage with the same number of rounds in the mag but with slower reloads. But I've included it so there's a comparison between this and Extended Mag with a backup mag mod. So Each round does 21,844, there'll be 8 in the first magazine, followed by 2 lots of 4 and a final magazine of 2. Total damage for this is 393,197, and it takes around 20.23 seconds to fire all of those. Therefore DPS is 19,436. This means that for the best overall DPS and total damage, Tactical Mag with a major spec mod is the way to go, but only just. And now it's Adored. This is a 90 RPM sniper that sits in the energy slot and holds a maximum of 17 rounds with nothing to boost this. I've tested it with a major spec mod and a backup mag mod. Now this also has triple tap and vorpal weapon, which should make it very good for DPS, but not so much. Starting with the major spec mod, each round does 16,965 damage and you can have a maximum of 4 in the magazine. This will be the case for 4 magazines, with the final magazine only holding 1. Now as I've said, this is triple tap, so those magazines that only contain 4 will turn into 5 if you land them all as precision hits. Time to empty 4 magazines of 5, followed by that single round in the final mag, takes around 21.84 seconds, with damage coming in at 356,265. Therefore DPS is 16,312. And yes, that is very poor, but I do have more to say in this weapon and why that is, which I'll discuss just before the first graph. Timestamp is down below. Now it's Adored with a backup mag mod. This will increase base magazine size to 5, which means with triple tap you can fire a total of 7 per full magazine. This will consist of 3 magazines with 7 rounds and the final only having 2. Damage for each round has now dropped to 15,742. It takes 21.07 seconds to fire all of those, and total damage is 362,066. Therefore DPS is 17,184. So with the 3 new snipers out of the way, we'll take a look at some favourites from Season 11 and earlier, starting with Whisper the Worm with its Catalyst. This does 28,252 damage against Carl with Whispered Breathing procced, and holds a maximum of 18 with nothing to boost that. Total damage is therefore 508,536, and time to do this is 13.94 seconds. Therefore DPS is a very impressive 36,480. Now, firstly, this does not include the time to proc Whispered Breathing, so you need to be aiming down sights and ready to fire before the damage phase starts. And unfortunately, another mistake that I've spotted, when calculating DPS in my Season 11 summary video, I actually said that the DPS was without the time required to proc Whispered Breathing, but I've since noticed that I'd actually included it. And any reference to DPS with the perk time, I've actually included it twice. Very sorry about that, but yeah, that means Whisper the Worm beats Cloudstrike, although not necessarily for Taniks. Also, this sniper actually fires at more like 74 RPM rather than the 72 RPM quoted, which obviously helps with DPS. Next is Izanagi's Burden. This has been tested with 5 4x honed edge rounds fired. Damage for each round is 68,647, which is ever so slightly less than last season. Time to fire those is 14.4 seconds, therefore DPS is 23,836. Next is the Ikelos sniper, which fires at 140 RPM and has been tested with the perks Appended Mag, 4x the Charm, High Impact Reserves and a major spec mod. This has 7 in the magazine, although that goes all the way up to 11 due to 4x the Charm. It holds a maximum of 21 in the magazine with nothing to boost that, meaning it's simply 3 magazines consisting of 11 rounds. Damage per round is on screen now as it changes due to high impact reserves, with total damage coming in at 413,358. It takes 17.64 seconds to do that, therefore DPS is 23,433. Now, reload speed is slightly different to last season due to the change in loader mods, and strangely, the base damage for Ikelos does a little more than in Season 11, but once high impact reserves start to proc, it's less than the equivalent buff in Season 11. Not sure what's going on there. Ultimately, this has resulted in a lower DPS figure for the Ikelos than tested in previous videos. And finally, we're moving on to Long Shadow, a 90 RPM kinetic sniper, tested with the perks Appended Mag, Rapid Hit, Triple Tap and a backup mag mod. This takes the magazine size to 7, meaning 10 rounds per full magazine can be fired due to Triple Tap, and it holds a total of 19 in reserves. Therefore the fire pattern is 2 magazines of 10, followed by a final magazine of 5, which increases to 7 due to Triple Tap. Damage per round is 14,373 and it takes around 20.88 seconds to do that, with total damage coming in at 388,071. Therefore DPS is 18,586. So quickly, I wanted to take a look at Adored and why it has such low DPS numbers, despite having Vorpal Weapon for example. To do this, I'll be comparing it to Long Shadow, as they're both 90 RPM sniper rifles and are listed as having 70 impact. Now, as shown on screen now, the base damage per round for Long Shadow is 14,373, whereas for Adored, it's only 13,688. Now this is without Vorpal Weapon, but it means when you have Vorpal Weapon selected, it's not given as much as of a buff compared to if the base damage was the same as Long Shadow. Of course, with Vorpal Weapon, Adored does do more, but not as much as I would have expected. I honestly don't know why this is, whether I've missed something and it's intentional by Bungie, I don't know. And secondly, with a backup mag mod, Adored only goes up to 5 in the magazine, whereas with Long Shadow, a backup mag mod takes it to 7 due to appended mag. And let's not forget that Long Shadow has rapid hit, so it has a faster reload. Anyway, the graph, starting with Cloudstrike, remembering this is with every lightning strike hitting the target, which isn't necessarily always the case. Now it's Succession with Tactical Mag and a Major Spec mod, and obviously, as expected, it doesn't get close as Cloudstrike. Succession again, but with Extended Mag and a backup mag mod. You can see the extra rounds in the first mag allow it to fire for longer than Tactical Mag before reloading and gain a bit of a lead, but it can't match the damage as it starts to fall off as time goes on, especially after that first magazine. Extended Mag with Major Spec now, and this obviously can match Tactical Mag, but those slightly slower reloads accumulate over time, as can be seen on the graph, resulting in lower DPS. Adored with a Major Spec coming onto screen now, and from around 3 seconds onwards, it's below everything in the test at any given moment. That short vertical line at the end is the single round fired from the final magazine. And now Adored with a backup mag mod, and you can see the benefit from having more rounds in the magazine, despite the lower damage for each one. But it's still back and forth with a Major Spec Adored and sits below everything else so far for almost the entire time tested. Whisper of the Worm next, and a bit of a pleasant surprise. It initially falls behind Cloudstrike by a large margin, but the longer time goes on, the more it starts to close the gap due to Cloudstrike needing to reload. Both of those weapons though being well ahead of anything else so far. Izanagi's Burden now, which kind of mingles with the legendary snipers, it jumps ahead occasionally due to its excellent burst damage, but the long reload times mean it can't really pull ahead by any kind of a meaningful amount. An old favourite now, the Ikelos sniper. It falls behind Succession initially due to the large opening magazine from Succession and the slower fire rate, but after that it starts to pull ahead, and the majority of the time is ahead over the rest, only dipping below them momentarily during reloads. This also has the highest total damage with the exception of Whisper and Cloudstrike. And finally, Long Shadow, which is back and forth with Adored and a backup mag mod, but ahead of Adored with a Major Spec for most of the time. So Cloudstrike coming out on top, but Whisper of the Worm does start to close the gap the more times you need to reload Cloudstrike, and as I've already pointed out though, this is assuming the lightning strikes from every round hit the target. In the case of Taniks on phase 2, if you have a Divinity user, DPS will be higher than this, as I believe the lightning strikes do crit damage. And then moving down, we have the Ikelos coming out on top for DPS compared to the rest of the snipers, 4 times the charm paired with high impact reserves, showing what an excellent combination they are, with the highest damage also. Now, how do things change when Anarchy is thrown into the mix, and in the case of Izanagi's Burden, when paired with Interference 6? So I'm going to keep Cloudstrike and Whisper of the Worm in place and start with Succession for the first example being Tactical Mag with a Major Spec mod, now Extended Mag with a Major Spec mod, and finally Extended Mag with a backup mag mod. So as you can see, they all fall behind Cloudstrike when it's firing, but for every reload, they start to close the gap and overall they are gaining. You can see when reloading the Succession Sniper, damage still increases due to tick damage from Anarchy. All 3 variants do significantly more damage than both Whisper of the Worm and Cloudstrike once past around 15 seconds. The firing order for each with Anarchy goes something like this, starting with 2 rounds from the grenade launcher at the start for every example. With Tactical Mag or Extended Mag with a Major Spec mod, you empty the first magazine, reload, then switch to Anarchy and fire 2 rounds from that, before switching back to Succession again. Then empty 2 magazines from the sniper, but before reloading after the second, switch back to Anarchy, fire 2 rounds from that, and then reload Succession for the final mag. With Extended Mag and a backup mag mod, empty the first magazine, then switch to Anarchy and fire 2 more rounds, and then back to Succession to reload and empty the second magazine. Then reload, switch to Anarchy, fire 2 more rounds, then back to Succession to empty the final magazine. Bit of a mouthful, and I hope that makes sense. Following this process ensures you have tick damage from Anarchy right the way through the entire process, and of course, all downtime for switching between weapons has been included in the final DPS number, and this is the same for every sniper tested. Now to take a look at Adored when paired with Anarchy, first up when it has a major spec mod equipped, and second with a backup mag mod. The method when paired with Anarchy for a major spec mod is to empty the first 2 magazines, then switch to Anarchy and fire 2 more rounds from that before reloading Adored, then switch back to the sniper, reload, empty a magazine, reload again, but then switch to Anarchy and fire 2 rounds. After this, it's all with the sniper, where you can empty the final 2 magazines without worrying about Anarchy tick damage ending. And when you have it with a backup mag mod, empty the first magazine, reload, switch to Anarchy and fire 2 rounds from that, go back to Adored and empty 2 magazines, but before reloading after the second, it's back to Anarchy again for 2 rounds from that. After which, switch back to Adored, reload, and empty the final magazine. Now these two are back and forth with each other, whereby whenever one is reloading or you're firing from Anarchy, the other starts to pull ahead, and it's like that all the way to the end. For the most part though, they spend the majority of the time below all the other weapons on the graph so far, but they do have good total damage though. Next is Izanagi's paired with Interference 6, with the perks on the grenade launcher being spike grenades, auto-load and holster, full court and a backup mag mod. I've retested this weapon and found it was doing slightly more damage against Carl than it did against Greg, therefore DPS for this method is actually a little higher than last season. Now, as you can see as it comes onto the graph, it's very potent and actually has the best DPS in the whole test. This is when implementing the usual sprint cancel method that was popular with Wendigo. After every single round from Izanagi's, this combination shoots ahead of everything else, then falls behind during the reload, but every time it pulls it back again, once you fire 3 rounds from Interference followed by Izanagi's. It's a very impressive combo. Now it's the Ikelos. I understand things might be getting a little difficult to see now, I am sorry about that as they're all on top of each other, but just in case you can't see it very well, the Ikelos leapfrogs with Succession with extended mag and a backup mag mod, spends most of its time below Succession with tactical mag and a major spec, is ahead of both Adored variants tested for the entire time pretty much, but it does run out of ammo sooner, meaning less total damage than those. It's typically behind Whisper of the Worm, Izanagi's and Cloudstrike for most of the test, but it does do more total damage than them. It's not quite the powerhouse it was in Season 11, due to slightly lower DPS than tested back then, and now some much stronger competition. So finally, it's Long Shadow. This actually does very well. It's below the Ikelos for most of the test, as well as Succession with tactical and a major spec mod, and also extended with a backup mag mod. But it does do better than Succession with extended mag and a major spec. It leapfrogs a little with Adored and a backup mag mod, but is ahead of the major spec variant for the majority of the test. Of course though, it does sit below all of the exotic options, but it does the most damage out of everything in the whole test. Okay, so apologies for the cluttered graph. I don't think I've ever had 10 weapons or combinations on it at once before. So to sum up, the best DPS is Izanagi's paired with Interference 6, best total damage is Long Shadow paired with Anarchy. Cloudstrike personally isn't something I'll be using regularly for DPS, as you rely too heavily on the lightning strikes, and not only do they sometimes miss a smaller target, but you might miss a precision shot yourself, meaning you won't even have a lightning strike for that round. The exception to this of course is Taniks with a Divinity user. Whisper of the Worm being probably the biggest surprise for me once I'd rectified the mistakes. Sorry about that again, and Adored doing less damage per round than expected. If it had the same base damage as Long Shadow does, remember they're both 90 RPM snipers with the same impact value, I'd expect it to be a top tier choice for legendaries. Ikelos is still good and the best out of the legendaries for DPS, and Succession with tactical mag and a major spec mod is the better option for that sniper, doing slightly less DPS than the Ikelos but more total damage. Table coming onto screen now with the results of everything tested and in order, ranked highest to lowest for DPS. And that is in fact all from me. There's quite a few moments there where it was a bit of a mouthful and I was waffling on and the graph was cluttered. I am sorry. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Any questions or feedback, please let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.